Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Friday's edition of Football at 4 being sponsored by EMT Solar and Roofing. See if your home qualifies for a free roof with solar installation. No commitments, no hidden fees. Go to ESPNsolar.com to see if you qualify. It's a Friday edition of Football at 4, and the latest Eagles injury report just came out. And if you have been listening to the Inside the Birds podcast with Adam Caplan and Jeff Mosher, the name who was ruled out does not surprise you. And we'll bring in Adam Caplan, now NFL insider at Caplan NFL on Twitter. Adam, welcome back in. How you doing today?
Josh, good to be with you. Yeah, look, we knew Reed Blankenship wasn't going to play with his MCL sprain. He's out, and everyone else will be available, including Sean Bradley is one of their key special teams players. So that's it. Yeah, everyone else worked today, and that's it. And there absolutely zero surprises. But the big surprise here's for the Bears. Chase Claypool will not play with his knee injury.
Yep.
So with him being out and Darnell Mooney being on injured reserve, they're in real dire straits. Look, they have a bad football team as it is. Claypool, they stupidly gave up a second-round pick for. The Steelers were shopping him. They were glad to move him. What a steal they've gotten so far. So now with Claypool out, it'll be N'Keal Harry, it'll be EQ St. Brown, and Byron Pringle and Dante Pettis. Those are the guys who will play. They're all backups, but this is all they have, and this is what they're going to have to go with. And the Eagles, by the way, their cornerback tandem, number one in the NFL in terms of giving up the least amount of production. I mean, good luck, Bears, this week.
Yeah, ain't that true? Now, before we get too much into the Bears, because there's a lot of information that shows that the Bears are pretty much just a dumpster fire heading into this game, Adam. I want to get back to the safety thing, because for those who didn't listen to Wednesday's Football at 4, I thought Jeff Mosher brought up a great point about, and you guys mentioned this also on your podcast, about the style the Eagles run their defense. We might see more of Josiah Scott at that safety position, right? So explain to the audience what happens when Reed Blankenship is out, what that means for the depth chart there.
Yeah, so what happened last week is, because what I'm told is actually Josiah Scott has got periodic snaps in practice at safety. You know, he did in training camp, then he stopped, and then what I'm told is during practice during the season he's gotten some. And you just saw it. He played in sub packages at safety, particularly after Blankenship got hurt in this last game. And then they also used Kevon Wallace as sort of more of a base unit safety. But look, it's not good. Now, if they're playing a better team, you'd really worry about it. And the Eagles do believe Blankenship, as of now, has a chance to come back before the end of the regular season. But yeah, this is a problem. Look, without the trade deadline, Josh, passing, the Eagles just don't have any depth anymore at safety. They're completely depleted there. It's right now. It's Marcus Epps, who's been terrific, having a breakout season. It's Wallace, whatever Scott could give him at safety, and Anthony Harris and Andre Sachare. One of them you could expect to be elevated. Well, actually, only Sachare's run out of elevations for the regular season. He can only be signed off of it. Where Anthony Harris is back with the team, has gotten some practice reps this week, so they could take a look at him.
So without Chase Claypool, the Eagles without Reed Blankenship, it seems to me, Adam, that if you look at the Bears' offense versus the Eagles' defense, this is looking more and more like a trenches game, right? The Bears' O-line versus the Eagles' front seven.
Yeah, and the Bears have a bottom 10 offensive line. What they're going to do in this game, Josh, is they're going to start Riley Reif at right tackle. Larry Bourne was their right tackle. He's been out for a while with a knee injury. He won't play this week. That, to me, is a tremendous advantage for the Eagles going against Riley Reif, who started at left tackle in the NFC Championship game in 2017. To me, it's kind of like last week. The Eagles have a decided advantage. I expect them to take advantage of it. I know it's going to be cold. I get that. It'll be in the 20s. We'll see what the wind looks like. But you know the Eagles, Josh, if the wind is not too bad, they're going to come out throwing. They do most games, other than really the Green Bay game and one other, they come out throwing, because this has been their belief for 30 years. You throw to score to win early, and then you run to win in the second half.
You mentioned the Eagles' offense. The Bears' defense seemingly feels like it's been getting worse every week. Their passing defense, 204.2 per game, 207 per game in the last three. their run defense is not better. So it feels like this should be a game, Adam, that the Eagles should be able to get out in front early.
Yeah, and the reason why they're not giving a ton of yards is because teams have run so well over them, going against them. You can pick your poison. Now, they're very young but talented, Josh, are the Bears in their secondary. And they're going to get a bunch of guys back. Before their bye, they were without several players. Now, they're going to get Jaquan Brisker back from his concussion, who's their second-round pick out of Notre Dame. Their nickel corner, Kendall Vildor, love that name. He's back. Kyler Gordon, their other starting rookie corner, he'll be back from his injury. So they're talented but very young. I'll be interested to see what happens if it's windy, right? If they just don't think they could pass very much. Okay, so we know the Eagles could run on Chicago. Chicago's a bad run defense. It's just what happens when you march downfield. You got to throw the ball at some point. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention Dallas Goedert. Barring a surprise, he'll be activated by tomorrow's 4 p.m. deadline. Unless he has some kind of setback. If he doesn't get activated, it'll be the next week. And that, by the way, remember, they play next Saturday. And we'll look into what the rule would be. I'm assuming it's kind of like for a Monday night game that you have until 4 p.m. Eastern on that day to activate the player.
You mentioned Goddard. So the Eagles receivers and tight ends versus the Bears DBs. You mentioned Brisker. What are some of the other matchups to keep an eye on?
Yeah, to me, if you're the Eagles, Josh, and you go into this game, you know that they have no pass rush. They have arguably the NFL's worst pass rush. That's why I'm saying, folks, if they can protect, they'll be able to throw. They have an inexperienced but talented young secondary that has not played very long together. So to me, if you protect, you take what shots that you can. Maybe the screen game, if you can't throw the ball downfield, comes into play. But this is every matchup, Josh, the Eagles have an advantage. It's just if this had been under normal conditions, I would see the Eagles throwing the ball 30 times in the first half. They threw it high 20s last week. But again, the weather will play. It's going to be cold in the 20s. We just don't know. But the wind could always change. And by the way, teams will change. If the wind dies down, teams will start throwing. Like they'll just start throwing. This is the way it is with teams that are very proactive with a passing game. But again, it's just matchups. Eagles have the Bears have a very bad pass rush. They're young at linebacker. They're also small on the front seven. The Eagles should have no problem moving the football against this defense.
You mentioned that front seven. So what does that mean for Miles Sanders potentially on Sunday? He's the first Eagle running back to get 1,000 yards since LaShawn McCoy in a season.
Yeah, in fact, I have him as my player of the game for Sunday.
Wow.
That's the guy I think. And obviously he's headed for 1,400 plus yards, 14 to 16 touchdowns. Knock on wood, he doesn't get hurt. That's also been a key. He's on a final year of his rookie deal. We get that. It's just a breakout season, one of the best for any running back in Eagles history. And it's going to set up really an interesting situation with his contract because the Eagles don't like to let their own players go. They'll certainly have leverage in the situation. It's a good free agency class. Super early word on the running back class is good. So look, I know the Eagles, I'm sure they'll want to bring him back, but it's always the opportunity cost. And they've been more willing to walk away from players in recent years than they had when Howie Roseman was young as a GM.
Adam Caplan here on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at Caplan NFL on Twitter. And don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame and postgame shows this Sunday over on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. Adam, you mentioned a couple times that the Bears have talent, but they're very young. This is a team that now has lost 6 games in a row, 9 of their last 10 after starting the season 2-1. For Eagle fans who have not really sat around and watched the Bears this year, why has this team fallen off?
Lack of overall talent, Josh. And I get that this is a situation where the team is kind of in a rebuild. Justin Fields, who we haven't talked about yet, who got off to a very bad start. He's been better lately. Obviously, he's been dynamic running, maybe the best running quarterback in the NFL, but he's got a great arm. He's got good size at 6'4", 225-ish, 220, 225. Look, they have to kind of rebuild the receiver core. This is mostly a backup receiver core that has to play a lot. They'll get Darnell Mooney back next season. He's had ankle surgery. They'll also be without Eddie Jackson, their star safety. We should mention that he's done for the season after foot surgery. So in the end, Josh, when you look at it, it's just a lack of talent, and that's why they're so bad. Though, how in the heck did they win at New England earlier this season?
I mean, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, that just had to be Justin Fields' magic at that point. I mean, the Bears even gave the Cowboys a scare earlier this year with Justin Fields running around crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, there was a ton of points but there was over 70 points scored in that game. That was a fun game. The thing about the Bears is they give up a lot of big plays. Every once in a while, they'll make a big play, but they just have to kind of rebuild their football team. They're one of the least talented teams in the NFL, and I expect that to show on Sunday.
When you say they're one of the least talented teams, but they have Justin Fields, it's interesting that, for the Eagle fan out there, they know Justin Fields, though. Eagle fans know that name. They know what he's capable of. So what is the key for the Eagles defense to not let Justin Fields have the kind of game to scare the Eagles?
And Josh, that is the key to this game for the Eagles. You're not going to stop Justin Fields. It's just not going to happen. You could control what he does. And we talked about this in today's show. There's what's called a mush rush. That's when you do not rush the passer. You take up lanes. This is what the late Jim Johnson did in 2005 against Michael Vick. When the Eagles played the Falcons in that game, they tattooed him. They were not going to let him get away. They boxed him in. And to me, that's what you do. You make him a passer. He's not even remotely close to where Jalen Hurts is as a passer. Yes, he's very talented. And yes, he was more highly thought of coming into the draft than Hurts was, but that doesn't matter anymore. It's where these guys are. And to me, if you're the Eagles, you do not get upfield. You play this guy to make him a passer, and he'll throw picks. He's just not experienced enough. Make him a passer. And by the way, 21.1 attempts per game, lowest in the National Football League for any passer over 5 games.
I mean, that number is insane. That's like a number from like the 80s or something.
Exactly. It's crazy. So, to me, when you look at it, Josh, you just have to make him a passer. David Montgomery's a fine back. The Eagles don't care. Let him run all day. They love that. They love David Montgomery to run the ball. They know that they'll kill them if they do that. It's just not letting Justin Fields break their backs. Those demoralizing 40 or 50-yard runs, it kills defensive players. It kills coordinators. It frustrates them. And I'm sure Jonathan Gannon and his defensive staff will have a game plan for it.
You mentioned Gannon. That's the last thing I want to get to with the defense with you, Adam, and that is the Eagles' run defense has gotten better in recent weeks. They've stayed on assignment. They've gotten better. You guys talked about on the game tape on the Inside the Birds podcast about how they're staying on assignment better than they were in previous games.
Yeah, they're just not making the mental errors. It's pretty remarkable. This is a very good execution style defense, the Eagles. Their handoff system, their matchup zone, this is what they wanted to do last year. They didn't do enough of it because of problems at corner, opposite Slay, but they don't have that problem anymore. It's just all working out. Their linebackers execute, they blitz, they tackle well, they blitz when they're asked to. They were talking about the inside linebackers. Then you've got the defensive line rotation, best of the National Football League. And just the depth that they have in the rotation. And I got to tell you, last week, Josh, Hassan Reddick was absolutely – he's probably not only his best game as an Eagle, and I know he's had some good games in his career. I can't imagine he had a better game before. It's not about a sack here or sack there. It's about the constant pressure, and the Giants had no answer for him. They just couldn't block the guy. He's one of the fastest edge rushers in the National Football League, and you can certainly see it week after week.
You mentioned how fast he is. Is he one of the keys maybe to keep Fields in check, is having a guy like him maybe on the edge in containment?
Yeah, he's just not big enough, though. That's the problem. He's only 6'1",
Gotcha.
230, 235, and that's just not the way you would do it. But I'll tell you what, he has not embarrassed himself in pass coverage. I know people had issues with that coming into the season. It's not been a problem. They're not getting killed by tight ends or screens to the running backs. It's kind of worked out. What a great signing he's been. I know people are concerned paying him $15 million a year. I'd have to say this right now. It's a bargain based on the way he's played.
Adam, before I let you go, your final thought on the Eagles Bears. Most people expect the Eagles to win the game on Sunday, but we know the line is 9 right now.
I expect them to cover that. I do. I know and I've been right every week in terms of picking the right side. I pick the Eagles every week. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I got it one wrong when Washington beat them. But
one out of 13 is a pretty good number.
Not bad. But I have not picked a blowout. Really, this is the first one. I assume Justin Fields will get his, maybe 70, 80 yards. But here's the problem. The Bears are not going to stop the Eagles' offense. Only the Eagles could stop themselves. We saw that in against Washington with 4 turnovers. So, no, I expect them to win rather handily. and then get ready to clinch the division when they win at Dallas next week.
Dallas week on a short week next week. And make sure to check out the Inside the Birds podcast, Inside the Birds YouTube channel for the pre and the post game. I love the post game with you, Jeff, and Trey Thomas. Always great stuff on there. And also InsideTheBirds.com. He's Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL. Adam, great stuff today.
Thank you. See you.